During the planning processes, the project manager and team take great care to establish three specific baselines: the scope baseline and the cost and schedule baselines. These are fundamental to the project management plan. The purpose of a baseline is to set expectations for the project performance. Actual performance can be measured against the baseline at any point in the project lifetime in order to identify variances and make quick corrections to keep the project performance in line with the plan. It's possible that the project manager may need to update the baseline based on new information or changes that occur during the project. There are certain principles a project manager should apply when updating performance baselines. We'll use a running scenario to illustrate some concepts. Margaret is managing a project that's part of a larger program to develop and market a new type of ammonia-free fertilizer. This new fertilizer will increase corn and wheat crop yields while minimizing health risks to humans and animals. The scope of the project includes developing two separate designs and prototype samples, one tailored for corn and the other for wheat. The project's highest constraint is quality. If government-regulated quality standards aren't adhered to, the products won't be approved. Because the project team is developing a fertilizer, a product that will affect food quality, there are strict guidelines on how to use clinical research studies for the project. For example, the studies can't be older than 5 years, and they must list all adverse reactions for each ingredient. Jennifer, the quality reviewer, has checked the project design and found that some of the quality criteria haven't been met. At least 3 of the clinical studies that were referenced weren't conducted recently enough to be valid. She brings this to Margaret's attention. What kind of adjustments do you think Margaret needs to make after discovering the clinical trials were not conducted properly? First of all, she needs to make improvements to the way the clinical studies are sourced by the development team. Then she needs to update the schedule baseline to account for the delay caused by the rework. The baseline must be updated so that future monitoring and controlling of the project will be done according to accurate measures. Margaret suspects that the problem could have occurred because the requirements weren't explained clearly enough. So she looks at the quality management plan and makes some adjustments there too. She also asks the team leader to revise the work instructions on how to locate appropriate clinical studies and to email those to the team. Margaret makes sure her next report to Alex, the program manager, includes all the schedule changes that have been made. So when he reviews it, he is able to monitor how this project's development fits in with the overall program schedule. A few weeks later, Alex sends Margaret some market research information showing that there's greater demand for corn than for wheat, given the drive for biofuels. So Margaret presents this information at a meeting with the project team, and she explains that they will narrow the scope of the project to eliminate all activities related to producing the wheat fertilizer. She forecasts that the scope reduction actually saves 20 days, so she revises the schedule baseline to reflect this, hoping that there won't be too many more unforeseen changes. Let's think about the scenario and how it illustrates some principles that apply to updating project baselines. Each time Margaret had to take corrective or preventative action, she made a change to one or possibly more baselines. The principle that changes to one baseline affect other baselines was demonstrated when the guidelines for using clinical studies weren't followed. Repairing this defect required updates to the schedule, the quality management plan, and the work instructions for the project. Project baselines may be increased or decreased. This principle was demonstrated by the way that Margaret and Alex, the program manager, monitored and controlled project and program work. Margaret increased the schedule baseline to account for the delays on the project. Then Alex's change request caused a reduction in the project scope and schedule. The decision to increase or decrease the baselines depend on the constraints and needs of the project. In summary, change requests often cause project baselines to be adjusted. They can result in project baselines being increased or decreased, depending on the constraints and needs of a project. Typically, a change to one baseline affects the other baseline as well. When a change is made, you have to adjust the baselines to reflect those changes, or future efforts to monitor and control project work will be skewed.